/petty revenge bratty teens mocked my military husband, so I left them speechless. /petty revenge bratty teens mocked my military husband, so I left them speechless. The sound of their laughter hit me like a slap across the face. I was standing outside GameStop at Westfield Mall, waiting for my husband Jake to finish looking at some new releases, when I heard it. That particular brand of teenage cruelty that cuts through ambient mall noise like a knife. My blood went cold as I turned toward the source. 4 boys, maybe 16 or 17, were huddled near the orange Julius, pointing and snickering. At first, I couldn't figure out what had captured their attention. Then I saw Jake emerge from the store, his military-issued cane tapping against the tile floor, his right leg dragging slightly with each step. "Dude, look at Grandpa over there," one of them said, loud enough for half the food court to hear. "Walking like he's gotta stick up his." "Bro, is he like 90? Another one chimed in, pulling out his phone. "This is hilarious." My hands clenched into fists. Jake was 29 years old. 29, and these little idiots thought his struggle to walk was entertainment. Jake hadn't noticed them yet. He was focused on navigating the crowd, something that still took concentration after 18 months of physical therapy. The IED that had torn through his Humvee outside Kandahar had shattered his right femur in 3 places and left shrapnel embedded near his spine. The doctors had told us he was lucky to be walking at all. "Oh my god, he's coming this way," the tallest one whispered, not quietly enough. "Quick, do the walk." And then they did it. All 4 of them started mimicking Jake's gait, exaggerating his limp while covering their mouths to muffle their laughter. One kid even grabbed a pretzel from his bag and used it as a makeshift cane. That's when something inside me snapped. I've always been protective of Jake, even before his deployment. But watching these privileged little brats mock the man who'd given everything for his country, who still woke up screaming some nights, who'd spent 8 months learning to walk again, who apologized to me for not being the same, it was like watching someone desecrate a flag. Jake finally spotted me and started making his way over, his face lighting up with that smile that had gotten me through 15 months of sleepless nights and medical bills and wondering if he'd ever come home. He had no idea what was happening behind him. "Hey babe, they didn't have the new Call of Duty, but I found." "Jake," I interrupted, my voice tight. "Don't turn around. Just keep talking to me." His expression shifted immediately. 3 tours had given him instincts that civilian life couldn't dull. "What's wrong?" "Those boys behind you. They've been making fun of how you walk." I watched his jaw clench, saw his knuckles whiten around the handle of his cane. For just a moment, I caught a glimpse of the soldier he'd been before the explosion, the one his sergeant had called the most fearless kid I've ever served with. "It's fine, Mia," he said quietly. "Let's just go." But it wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. The boys were still at it, now openly pointing and laughing as Jake stood there, trying to pretend he couldn't hear them. Other shoppers were starting to notice the commotion, some looking annoyed, others just confused. That's when I made my decision. These kids wanted a show? I was about to give them one they'd never forget. I could feel my heart pounding as I watched Jake's shoulders tense. He was doing that thing he always did when he was trying to hold himself together, taking slow, measured breaths through his nose while his free hand flexed and unflexed at his side. "Seriously, Mia, let's just leave," he murmured, but I could hear the hurt underneath his forced calm. "It's not worth it." The thing is, Jake had been saying that a lot lately. It's not worth it when the VA messed up his appointment scheduling. It's not worth it when his former boss had to let him go 3 weeks after he started working again because his physical limitations made him not quite the right fit. It's not worth it when the grocery store clerk rolled her eyes at how long it took him to navigate the checkout line. My husband had spent the last 2 years convincing himself he wasn't worth defending. I was done watching him shrink himself to make other people comfortable. "Oh, this is perfect," one of the boys said, pulling out his phone and angling it toward us. "Dude, I'm totally posting this. Hashtag Grandpa Gamer or something. Make sure you get the cane in the shot," another one added. "This is going to get so many likes." They were going to film him. These little sociopaths were actually going to record my husband and post it online for their friends to laugh at. The protective rage that had been simmering in my chest exploded into something white-hot and dangerous. "That's it," I said, stepping forward. "Hey. You 4. Jake caught my arm. "Mia, don't." "No," I said, loud enough that several nearby shoppers turned to look. "I'm done pretending this is okay." The boys looked over, suddenly aware they'd been called out. The one with the phone, a skinny kid with expensive sneakers and the kind of haircut that probably cost more than our grocery budget, smirked at me. "Is there a problem, lady?" he asked with mock innocence. "Actually, yes. There is a problem." I could feel more people starting to pay attention now. An older woman with a shopping bag had stopped near the pretzel stand. A couple with a baby stroller slowed their pace. Even some of the food court workers were craning their necks to see what was happening. Perfect. The bigger the audience, the better. "You think it's funny to mock someone for how they walk?" I continued, my voice carrying across the space between us. "We're just hanging out," another boy said, but his confidence was starting to waver. "It's not like we were talking to him or whatever." "Right. You were just filming him without his permission and making jokes about his disability." I gestured toward Jake, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Does that seem like decent behavior to you?" The leader, Mr. Expensive Haircut, rolled his eyes. "Look, we're sorry if we hurt Grandpa's feelings, okay? We were just having fun." "Grandpa?" I repeated, my voice getting dangerously quiet. "Did you just call my husband Grandpa?" "I mean." He shrugged, glancing at his friends for support. "He's walking around with a cane like he's ancient. What are we supposed to think?" That did it. These entitled little brats had just handed me the opening I needed, and I was going to make them regret every word. The crowd around us was growing larger now, drawn by the obvious tension. I could see curious faces gathering at the edges of my vision, phones starting to come out. Good. The more witnesses, the better. It was time to teach these boys exactly who they'd been mocking. I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the group, close enough that they couldn't pretend they couldn't hear me. The food court had gotten noticeably quieter, and I could feel dozens of eyes on us now. "You want to know why my husband uses a cane?" I asked, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone within earshot to hear clearly. You really want to know? The boy with the expensive haircut shifted uncomfortably. Look, we don't really care about. He's 29 years old, I cut him off. 29. And he walks with a cane because he served 3 tours in Afghanistan defending your right to stand here and act like spoiled little brats. A murmur rippled through the growing crowd. I saw an older man in a veteran's cap push closer, his expression darkening as he looked at the boys. A woman near the Sparrow counter shook her head in disgust. Whatever, the tall kid mumbled, but his phone had disappeared back into his pocket. We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't bother to think before you opened your mouths, I continued. You saw someone who looked different and decided that made him fair game for your entertainment. Jake tugged on my sleeve. Mia, please. Let's just go home. But I could hear the defeat in his voice, and it broke something inside me. This was exactly what I'd been watching happen for months, Jake backing down, apologizing for existing, trying to make himself invisible because people like these kids made him feel like a burden. My husband earned a Purple Heart, I said, turning back to the boys. He pulled 2 of his fellow soldiers out of a burning vehicle after an IED explosion. He spent 8 months in the hospital learning to walk again. And you think that's funny? The skinny kid who'd been doing the exaggerated walk earlier was now staring at his shoes. We didn't mean. You didn't mean what? To be cruel? To mock a disabled veteran? To film him so your friends could laugh at him too? My voice was getting louder now, fueled by months of watching Jake struggle with people's ignorance and my own helplessness to fix it. Mia, Jake said again, more urgently this time. People are staring. Good, I snapped. Let them stare. Let them see exactly what you forethought was so hilarious. But as I looked around at the crowd, I realized that Jake was right. There were at least 30 people gathered now, phones out, recording everything. A security guard was pushing through the crowd, looking annoyed and official. And Jake. Jake looked mortified. His face was flushed, and he was gripping his cane so tightly his knuckles had gone white. This was supposed to be a simple trip to the mall, maybe grab some lunch at the food court. Instead, I turned him into the center of a public spectacle. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to lower your voice, the security guard said as he approached. You're causing a disturbance. I'm causing a disturbance? I turned to him, incredulous. These kids were filming my disabled husband and mocking him, and I'm the problem? The guard looked uncomfortable, glancing between me and the boys. Look, I don't know what happened, but you're drawing a crowd and making other customers uncomfortable. She's just defending her husband, the woman near Sparrow called out. Those boys were being awful. They were making fun of a veteran, the older man with the cap added, his voice sharp with authority. I saw the whole thing. Now the boys looked genuinely panicked. What had started as harmless fun for them was spiraling into something much bigger, with a crowd of angry adults taking sides and security getting involved. The leader glanced toward the exit, clearly calculating whether they could just bolt. But we were surrounded now, trapped in the center of the food court with nowhere to run. I think we should all just calm down, he said weakly. That's when I smiled. Because now I had them exactly where I wanted them. Calm down? I repeated, my smile sharp enough to cut glass. Oh, I'm perfectly calm. In fact, I think this is the perfect opportunity for a little education. The security guard was looking increasingly nervous as more people gathered. I could see him speaking into his radio, probably calling for backup. But I wasn't done. Not even close. You know what, Jake? I said, turning to my husband who was looking like he wanted to crawl under the nearest table. Why don't you tell these boys about your last mission? The one where you earned that Purple Heart? Mia, no, he said through gritted teeth. This isn't. The one where you carried Sergeant Morrison out of that burning Humvee while your own leg was shattered? I continued, my voice carrying to every corner of the food court. Or should I tell them about the shrapnel that's still embedded near your spine? The pieces they couldn't remove without risking paralysis? The crowd was eating it up. I could see people recording, nodding in approval, shooting dirty looks at the 4 boys who were now pressed together like a pack of cornered animals. The woman from Sparrow had her phone out, clearly live-streaming the whole thing. This is insane, the tall boy muttered to his friends. She's literally psycho. Wrong thing to say. Psycho? I laughed, and even I could hear the edge in it. You think I'm psycho for defending my husband? Let me tell you what's psycho, thinking it's funny to mock someone's war injuries. Thinking it's entertaining to film disabled people without their consent. Ma'am, the security guard tried again, I really need you to. Actually, you know what would be really educational? I interrupted, pulling out my own phone. I should call the local news station. I bet they'd love to do a story about how veterans are treated at Westfield Mall. What do you think, boys? Want to be on the 6 o'clock news? The panic in their eyes was immediate and satisfying. The leader grabbed his friend's arm. We should go, he whispered, not quietly enough. Oh, you want to leave now? I called after them as they started backing toward the exit. But we were having such a nice conversation about respect and decency. That's when Jake finally snapped. Enough. His voice cut through the crowd noise like a gunshot, military command authority that made everyone, including me, freeze. Mia, stop. Now. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake was shaking, whether from anger or embarrassment or both, I couldn't tell. But when he looked at me, I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach drop. This isn't what I wanted, he said quietly, but in the hush of the crowd, everyone could hear him. This isn't helping anything. Jake, I was just. You were making it worse. His voice was flat, defeated. You're making everything worse. The crowd was starting to murmur now, uncertain. Some people were putting their phones away, looking awkward. The righteous anger that had been building in my favor was shifting into something uncomfortable. The security guard saw his opening. Folks, show's over. Everyone needs to disperse. Now. As people started reluctantly moving away, the 4 boys seized their chance and bolted toward the main corridor. I watched them disappear into the crowd, my perfect moment of revenge crumbling into something ugly and hollow. Jake was already walking away, his cane tapping an angry rhythm against the tile. His limp seemed more pronounced now, whether from stress or just my heightened awareness of it. Jake, wait. I called, hurrying to catch up. But the damage was done. I could feel it in the space between us, in the rigid set of his shoulders, in the way he wouldn't look at me. I'd wanted to defend his honor. Instead, I'd made him the center of exactly the kind of attention he'd spent 2 years trying to avoid. And somehow, that felt like losing more than if I'd said nothing at all. The car ride home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Jake stared out the passenger window, his cane propped between his knees, saying absolutely nothing. Every time I tried to speak, the words died in my throat. The silence felt like a living thing, pressing down on us with suffocating weight. When we finally pulled into our driveway, he was out of the car before I'd even turned off the engine, moving as quickly as his injured leg would allow. I sat there for a moment, watching him struggle with the front door, knowing better than to offer help he clearly didn't want. Jake, I called as I followed him inside. Can we please talk about this? He dropped onto the couch with a heavy sigh, setting his cane aside with deliberate care. What's there to talk about, Mia? You humiliated me in front of half them all. I was defending you. Those kids were being stupid teenagers, he cut me off. And instead of walking away like adults, you turned it into a goddamn circus. I felt heat rising in my cheeks. So I was supposed to just let them mock you? Film you? Post it online for their friends to laugh at? Yes. The word exploded out of him. That's exactly what you were supposed to do. Because now, instead of 4 idiotic kids with phones, there are probably 50 people who recorded me having a breakdown in the food court. He was right, and I hated that he was right. Already, I was imagining the videos spreading across social media. Crazy wife defends veteran husband or mall meltdown goes viral. Jake's face, his struggle, our private pain turned into public entertainment. I was trying to protect you, I said weakly. I didn't ask you to protect me. His voice was quiet now, which somehow felt worse than the yelling. I haven't asked you to protect me from anything. That's not your job. Of course it's my job. I'm your wife. You're my wife, not my bodyguard. He rubbed his hands over his face. Mia, do you have any idea what it's like? Having everyone look at you like you're broken? Having people whisper and point and treat you like you're made of glass? Those boys weren't treating you like glass. They were treating you like a joke. And that's my problem to handle. Not yours. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've been dealing with this crap since I got back. The stares, the comments, the fake sympathy. I've learned to live with it. But what you did today, that was something else entirely. My phone buzzed. Then again. And again. I pulled it out to find a string of notifications from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Tags and videos, comments on posts I hadn't even seen yet. My heart sank as I opened the first one. Oh no. What? Jake's voice had gone flat. I turned the phone toward him. The video was already at 30,000 views. The caption read, Karen attacks teens at mall, military wife goes psycho defending disabled husband. We watched in horrible silence as the scene played out on the small screen. But from this angle, shot by someone near the Orange Julius, the context was completely different. You couldn't see the boys mocking Jake. You couldn't hear their cruel comments. All you could see was me, red-faced and screaming at 4 teenagers while my husband tried to pull me away. The comments were brutal. Asterisk, crazy lady needs meds. Those poor kids just trying to hang out. Husband looks embarrassed AF. This is why I hate military wives, think they're entitled to everything. Asterisk. There are 12 more videos, I whispered, scrolling through my notifications. Different angles, different accounts. Jake took the phone from my trembling hands and watched another clip. In this one, you could clearly see him saying enough, and calling me out in front of everyone. The comments were even worse. Asterisk, dude's more embarrassed by his wife than his injury. She's making vets look bad. Someone get this woman therapy. Asterisk. Jake, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. That's the problem, Mia. You didn't think. He handed my phone back. You saw those kids and you made it about you. About how angry you were, about what you needed to do. You didn't ask me what I wanted. You didn't consider what I could handle. You just exploded. The worst part was that he was absolutely right. In all my righteous fury, I hadn't thought about Jake at all. I thought about my need to defend him, my need to put those boys in their place, my need to feel like I was doing something useful instead of standing helplessly by while the world treated my husband like damaged goods. I was so tired of watching people hurt you, I said, tears starting to blur my vision. I was tired of watching you pretend it didn't matter. Maybe it shouldn't matter to you so much. The words hit like a physical blow. Maybe you're the one who needs to learn to let some things go. We sat in silence as my phone continued buzzing with notifications. Somewhere out there, thousands of strangers were watching the worst moment of our marriage, judging us, making memes, turning our pain into content. And the boys who'd started it all? They were probably at home right now, scrolling through the videos and laughing at how perfectly their cruel joke had backfired on us. They'd won after all. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing at 6:47 a.m. Jake's side of the bed was empty. He'd slept in the guest room, claiming his leg was bothering him and he didn't want to keep me awake with his tossing and turning. We both knew that was a lie. Mrs. Chen? The voice on the other end was brisk, professional. This is Amanda Rodriguez from Channel 7 News. We're doing a story about yesterday's incident at Westfield Mall and we'd love to get your perspective. My blood went cold. How did you get this number? Social media is a powerful tool, Mrs. Chen. Your husband's military record is quite impressive. Our viewers would love to hear from both of you about veteran treatment in our community. I hung up immediately, but the phone rang again within seconds. Different number, different reporter, same request. By the time Jake emerged from the guest room 40 minutes later, I'd fielded 8 calls and turned off my phone entirely. Local news? He asked, watching me pace the kitchen. Channel 7, Channel 12, something called Military Matters Weekly, and a podcast that specializes in viral military stories. I handed him a cup of coffee with shaking hands. Jake, this is spiraling completely out of control. He accepted the mug but didn't drink, just stood there in his old Army PT shirt looking like he'd aged 5 years overnight. My CO called this morning. My stomach dropped. What did he say? Apparently the videos made it to the base. Someone tagged the unit's official Facebook page. Jake's jaw tightened. He said it was bringing unwanted attention to military families and suggested I might want to keep my personal life more private going forward. That's not fair. You didn't do anything wrong. Didn't I? He finally took a sip of coffee, wincing like it burned. Because half the comments are saying I can't control my wife, and the other half are calling me an embarrassment to the uniform. Before I could respond, my laptop chimed with an email notification. Then another. And another. Don't, Jake said, seeing me reach for it. But I was already opening the browser, already scrolling through my inbox. Interview requests, hate mail, messages of support, and... oh God. What now? My hands were shaking as I read the email from my boss at the insurance firm where I'd worked for 3 years. Asterisk Mia, given the recent social media attention, we think it's best if you take some time off while this situation resolves itself. Paid leave, of course, but our clients are asking questions and we need to maintain our professional reputation, asterisk. I've been suspended, I whispered. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then, the veteran support group I go to? 3 guys texted me this morning. They saw the videos. They wanted to know if I was okay. That's good, right? That they're checking on you? They wanted to know if I was okay dealing with a wife who loses her mind in public. His voice was completely flat. One of them said his ex-wife used to pull similar stunts. Used his PTSD as an excuse to make scenes whenever she felt like playing the victim. The words hung in the air like poison. Jake, I would never. Wouldn't you? He turned to face me fully, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, something colder. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you used my service record as ammunition in a fight that had nothing to do with protecting me and everything to do with making yourself feel powerful. That's not true. Isn't it? He pulled out his own phone, swiped a few times, then turned it toward me. Look at this comment thread. I read the words with growing horror. Asterisk wife is clearly loving the attention. Notice how she keeps bringing up his purple heart. Classic military spouse behavior, think they served too. She's probably cheating while he was deployed and this is guilt. Poor guy. Injured overseas and comes home to this psycho. Asterisk. There are hundreds of these, Jake continued. Thousands. People psychoanalyzing our marriage, making assumptions about you, about me, about our entire relationship. And the worst part? Some of them aren't wrong. What do you mean? He sat down heavily at the kitchen table, suddenly looking exhausted. I mean, maybe you do think you served too. Maybe you do feel entitled to fight battles on my behalf whether I want you to or not. Maybe those kids weren't the problem yesterday, maybe we are. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. How can you say that to me? After everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed. Sacrificed? The word came out sharp. What exactly have you sacrificed, Mia? I waited for you. 15 months of deployment, 8 months in the hospital, 2 years of recovery, I never left, I never complained. No, you just made sure everyone knew how hard it was for you. He was standing now, coffee forgotten. Every conversation with friends, every family dinner, every social media post, it's always about how difficult it is being a military wife, how much you've been through. I was supporting you. You were supporting the idea of me. The hero husband who makes you look good by association. His voice was getting louder now, months of resentment finally boiling over. But the actual me? The guy who can't stand for long periods, who has nightmares, who needs help opening jars sometimes. You don't know how to deal with that version. That's not fair. Fair? Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to know what's not fair? Having your lowest moments broadcast to strangers because your wife can't tell the difference between defending you and defending her own ego. My laptop chimed again. More emails, more notifications, more strangers picking apart our lives for entertainment. And somewhere out there, those 4 boys were probably laughing at how thoroughly they destroyed us without even trying. I'm going to stay at Davis's place for a while, Jake said quietly, already moving toward the hallway where he kept his overnight bag. Jake, please don't leave. We can work through this. Can we? He paused in the doorway. Because right now, I don't even know who you are anymore. And I'm starting to wonder if you ever knew who I was at all. The front door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than any slam. I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the digital wreckage of my good intentions, finally understanding that sometimes the people trying to save you can cause more damage than the ones trying to hurt you. My phone buzzed again. Another interview request. This time, I didn't even look at it. 3 days into Jake's absence, I discovered that our story had evolved beyond simple mall drama into something much worse. I was hiding in our bedroom, curtains drawn, surviving on delivery food and the remnants of my pride, when my sister called. Mia, you need to see this, Sarah said without preamble. There's a TikTok account called @MallKarenWatch. They've made you into a meme. My laptop was already open, so I navigated to the account with the sick fascination of someone poking at a fresh wound. What I found made my stomach lurch. They'd taken clips from the mall videos and set them to music. Crazy military wife thinks she's a hero too, flashed across the screen while my red, furious face screamed at those boys in slow motion. Someone had added cartoon sound effects to Jake's cane tapping. Another video showed him saying enough, with dramatic zoom-ins and the caption, when your wife is more embarrassing than your war injuries. The account had 847,000 followers. There's more, Sarah said gently. Someone found Jake's military records. His unit, his deployment dates, even some photos from Afghanistan that were in a local newspaper article from 2019. I scrolled through the comments with growing horror. People had found Jake's LinkedIn profile, his Facebook page, even his old high school athletics records. Someone had posted a photo of our house with the address blurred out but recognizable landmarks clearly visible. They've turned him into a case study, I whispered. Look at this thread about whether his injuries are real or exaggerated. One particularly cruel comment had hundreds of likes. Plot twist, dude's faking the limp for sympathy and wife knows it. That's why she went so hard defending him, guilt. Another read, imagine surviving Afghanistan just to come home to this psycho. Maybe he should have stayed overseas. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake, asterisk saw the TikTok stuff. Davis is getting tagged in posts now. His kids are asking questions. I need to find somewhere else to stay, asterisk. The realization hit me like ice water. I wasn't just destroying our marriage anymore, I was destroying Jake's friendships, his support system, his ability to exist anywhere without being recognized as that veteran with a crazy wife. Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. Then rang again. And again. I crept to the window and peered through a gap in the curtains. A woman with a professional camera and a man holding a microphone stood on my front porch. Behind them, I could see a white van with Channel 12 News emblazoned on the side. Mrs. Chen, the woman called out. We know you're home. We just want to tell your side of the story. My phone rang immediately, Sarah again. Are you seeing this? They're live streaming outside your house right now. It's on the Channel 12 Facebook page. I grabbed my laptop and navigated to their page with shaking fingers. Sure enough, there was my front door in real time, with a rolling commentary of viewers chiming in. She's probably hiding inside crying, knock louder. This lady needs to face what she did. Sarah, what do I do? Jake's never going to forgive me if this gets worse. It's already worse, Mia. Someone started a GoFundMe for those boys, claiming you traumatized them. It's raised $3,400 so far. The doorbell rang again, followed by loud knocking. Mrs. Chen, we're not going away. The public deserves to hear from you. That's when I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. Mrs. Patterson from next door was standing in her yard with her phone out, clearly recording the news crew. Across the street, the Johnsons were on their porch, watching the spectacle unfold like it was dinner theater. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, your husband served our country and you're making all military families look bad. You should be ashamed, asterisk. Then another, asterisk, saw the videos. You're what's wrong with America, asterisk. And another, that poor man deserves better than a psycho wife who can't control herself. I turned off my phone and closed the laptop, but I could still hear the reporters outside, still hear Mrs. Patterson talking to someone, probably more neighbors coming to gawk at the crazy lady's house. This was what I created in my righteous fury to defend Jake's honor. I turned him into a viral sensation, our marriage into public entertainment, and our home into a tourist attraction for amateur internet detectives and local news vultures. And somewhere out there, those 4 teenage boys were probably laughing their heads off at how spectacularly their throwaway cruelty had blown up our entire life. The worst part? They hadn't even gotten in trouble. While Jake and I were being dissected by strangers online, they were completely anonymous, protected by their age and their smart decision to run away before anyone could identify them. They'd won in every possible way. The reporters finally left around sunset, but the damage was already spreading like wildfire across every platform I could think of. I spent the evening in my darkened living room, laptop balanced on my knees, watching our lives get dissected in real time by complete strangers. Someone had created a Wikipedia page called Westfield Mall Incident with a timeline of events, photos from the scene, and links to Jake's military service record. A Reddit thread titled Military Wife Karen Goes Nuclear had over 15,000 upvotes and 3,200 comments analyzing everything from my body language to Jake's obvious embarrassment. But the worst discovery came at 11 p.m. when I found the Facebook group. Westfield Mall Truth Seekers had 12,000 members and was growing by the hour. Someone had posted photos of our house, Jake's car, even the elementary school where I volunteered before all this started. They were crowdsourcing information about our lives like amateur detectives working a cold case. One post made my blood run cold, found the husband's therapy records mentioned in a 2021 interview with the VA newsletter. Says here he was struggling with adjustment issues and martial stress. Maybe the wife's been abusive for years and this was just the first time it got caught on camera. They'd twisted a story about Jake's recovery journey, one he'd bravely shared to help other veterans, into evidence that I was some kind of domestic abuser. The comments were a feeding frenzy of speculation about our marriage, our finances, even whether Jake's injuries were as severe as claimed. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Is this Mia Chen? The voice was young, female, almost excited. Who is this? I'm calling from TruthStream Podcast. We're doing an episode about viral videos and their real-world impact. We've got some really interesting theories about what actually happened at the mall that day. Theories? Well, our research team found some inconsistencies in the timeline. Plus, we've been contacted by someone who claims they know those boys you confronted. They're saying there's more to the story than what the videos show. My heart stopped. What do you mean? I can't reveal sources, but let's just say those kids might not have been as innocent as they appeared. If you're willing to come on the show, we could help set the record straight. Show your side of things. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe this was my chance to explain what really happened, to show people that those boys had been cruel and deliberate in their harassment. Maybe I could salvage something from this nightmare. We could even do it anonymously, the woman continued. Voice disguised, face hidden. Just your truth, finally getting told. I need to think about it. Of course. But just so you know, we're recording tomorrow night. With or without you, this story is getting told. Wouldn't you rather have your voice heard? After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone for 20 minutes. Was this legitimate journalism or just another way to exploit our situation? Could a podcast actually help, or would it just add fuel to the fire? I was still debating when my laptop chimed with a new email. The sender made my stomach drop. It was from Jake's commanding officer. Asterisk Mrs. Chen, I need to speak with you regarding your husband's current situation. There have been some developments that require immediate attention. Please call my office first thing Monday morning. This is not optional, asterisk. I read the message 3 times, each pass making me feel sicker. Developments that require immediate attention couldn't mean anything good. And the formal tone, the emphasis on not optional, this felt like the kind of communication that preceded serious consequences. Whatever I'd started at that mall, it was about to get infinitely worse. I barely slept that night, and when Monday morning came, I called Jake's CO with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Colonel Martinez's voice was crisp and professional in a way that made my chest tight with dread. Mrs. Chen, thank you for calling promptly. I need you to understand that this situation has escalated beyond what we initially anticipated. Sir, I don't understand. Jake didn't do anything wrong. No, he didn't. But the attention this incident has brought to our unit is becoming problematic. We've had reporters calling the base, asking questions about your husband's service record, his medical history, even details about his unit's deployment. My mouth went dry. That's not, they can't just. They can and they are. Someone leaked classified details about the IED incident that injured your husband. Details that were never supposed to be public. His voice hardened. Those details are now being discussed in online forums and podcast discussions. The room started spinning. I never told anyone classified information. I don't even know classified information. I believe you. But the leak happened after your husband became a viral sensation. The timing isn't coincidental. I could hear papers rustling in the background. Mrs. Chan, I'm going to be very direct with you. There are people in the chain of command who are questioning whether your husband can maintain operational security given his current domestic circumstances. Are you saying Jake could lose his job? Because of what I did? I'm saying that military spouses are held to certain standards, and when those standards aren't met, it reflects on the service member. Your husband has worked incredibly hard to rebuild his career after his injuries. Right now, that career is in jeopardy. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at nothing, trying to process how my moment of righteous anger had somehow threatened state secrets and Jake's entire livelihood. The irony was suffocating. I tried to defend his honor and instead had put his military career at risk. My laptop chimed with another notification, and despite knowing better, I checked it. Someone had found the elementary school where I used to volunteer and posted photos of me reading to children from last year's Valentine's Day event. The caption read, "Would you want this unhinged woman around your kids?" The principal had already called that morning to suggest I discontinue my volunteer work until things settle down. 3 years of reading to second graders, gone because parents were afraid I might lose it around their children. My phone rang, Sarah again. Mia, you need to see the news. Channel 7 is running a segment right now called When Military Wives Attack. They're interviewing some kind of expert about military family stress, and it's not good. I found the live stream just as a woman in a navy blazer was explaining to the anchor how deployment stress can manifest in explosive episodes, particularly among military spouses who feel they've sacrificed their own identities for their husband's service. This case appears to be a textbook example of displaced anger, she continued. The wife likely harbors resentment about her husband's limitations and her own curtailed life. When confronted with mockery of those limitations, she erupted, not really defending him, but defending her own narrative of victimhood. That's fascinating, Dr. Morrison. So you're saying this wasn't really about protecting her husband? Absolutely not. This was about protecting her self-image as a long-suffering military wife. Notice how quickly she brought up his service record, his Purple Heart. She was performing heroism by association. I slammed the laptop shut, but the damage was done. A licensed psychologist had just diagnosed me on live television based on 30 seconds of viral video footage. Tomorrow, those clips would be circulating alongside everything else, further cementing the narrative that I was unstable, attention-seeking, using Jake's service for my own ego. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk saw the news segment. The doctor is right. You're what's wrong with military families. Your husband deserves someone who supports him instead of embarrassing him. Asterisk. Then another. Asterisk just watched the Channel 7 thing. You need serious help, lady. Asterisk. And another. Asterisk my brother served 3 tours and his wife never acted like this. You're a disgrace to military spouses everywhere. Asterisk. I turned off my phone and closed my laptop, but I couldn't escape the growing realization that this was never going to end. Every day brought new angles, new experts, new ways for strangers to dissect my marriage and find me lacking. Somewhere in this city, Jake was watching the same coverage, reading the same comments, fielding calls from his chain of command about his wife's stability issues. And somewhere else, 4 teenage boys were probably amazed at how their casual cruelty had unleashed something this destructive. That evening, I was hiding in my bedroom when I heard the sound that made my blood freeze, Jake's key in the front door. He was back, but given everything that had happened, I couldn't tell if that was good news or the beginning of the end. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened as he moved around the living room. No television, no music, just the familiar tap of his cane against our hardwood floors. After 10 minutes of silence, I finally worked up the courage to go downstairs. Jake was sitting at our kitchen table with his laptop open and a stack of papers spread in front of him. He looked up when I entered, and I was shocked by how exhausted he seemed. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble covering his jaw, the kind of bone-deep weariness I hadn't seen since his worst days in the hospital. We need to talk, he said without preamble. I sat across from him, noting that he'd positioned himself so the table was between us, a barrier that felt both physical and symbolic. Jake, I know everything's gotten out of control, but maybe we can. I got fired today. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? But Colonel Martinez said. Colonel Martinez recommended I be transferred to a desk position pending a security review. My civilian contractor job decided they couldn't wait for the review to be completed. He pushed one of the papers toward me. Effective immediately. They cited public relations concerns and questions about judgment and stability in my personal life. I stared at the termination letter, the formal language blurring as tears filled my eyes. Jake had worked so hard to build a career after his injury, taking a position that accommodated his physical limitations while still utilizing his expertise. It had taken him 8 months to find that job. Jake, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to. There's more. He pulled up something on his laptop screen. Someone created a fake social media account using my name and photos from my deployment. They'd been posting inflammatory comments on military forums, claiming to be me. I looked at the screen in horror. Someone had taken Jake's official military portrait and created Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts for Jake Chin, Purple Heart veteran. The posts were designed to make him look unstable, rants about civilian disrespect, complaints about his wife, even threats against the boys from the mall. The post started 3 days ago, Jake continued. Base security is investigating, but the damage is already done. Half my unit thinks I've lost my mind, and the other half thinks I'm a security risk. This is insane. Can't they trace who did this? They're trying. But whoever created these accounts knew enough about my service record to make them look legitimate. Details that weren't in any of the viral videos. He met my eyes for the first time since I'd sat down. Someone with access to the leaked information about my deployment. The implication hung in the air between us. The same leak that had prompted his CO's call was now being used to destroy Jake's reputation from multiple angles. There's something else, he said quietly. Davis got a call at work today. Someone claiming to be a journalist asked his boss about his association with unstable veterans and whether the company was aware they employed someone who harbors potentially dangerous individuals. My stomach dropped. Did he? He's fine for now, but he asked me not to stay there anymore. His wife is worried about their kids being photographed or followed. Jake's voice was flat, matter of fact. I can't blame them. I reached across the table toward his hand, but he pulled it back before I could make contact. The gesture was small but devastating. Jake, we can fix this. We can hire lawyers, fight the fake accounts, prove. Prove what, Mia? That my wife isn't actually unstable? Because I'm starting to wonder about that myself. The words hung between us like a death sentence for our marriage. Outside, I could hear a car slowing down in front of our house, probably more gawkers taking photos of the crazy military wife's home. We sat in silence as our life continued crumbling around us, piece by piece. The next morning brought a complication I never could have anticipated. I was nursing my third cup of coffee, having barely slept after Jake's revelations, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Chen? This is Detective Williams with Metro Police. We need to speak with you about some threats that have been made. My coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering against the kitchen floor. Threats? We've received several reports about online communications targeting the minors involved in the mall incident. The messages reference your husband's military training and make specific mentions of teaching punk kids a lesson. We need to determine if these communications originated from your household. That's impossible. We would never. Ma'am, we're going to need you and your husband to come in for questioning. This morning would be preferable. After I hung up, I found Jake in the living room, staring out the window at our front yard where someone had apparently thrown eggs overnight. Yellow streaks covered our mailbox and front steps. The police want to see us, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Someone's been making threats against those boys online. They think it might be us. Jake's face went completely white. The fake accounts. It has to be. Someone's using your identity to make us look like we're threatening minors. I sank onto the couch beside him. Jake, this could mean criminal charges. Before he could respond, my laptop chimed with an email notification. The sender made my blood run cold. It was from the mother of one of the boys from the mall. Asterisk Mrs. Chen, I know what you and your husband have been posting online about my son. I have screenshots of everything. If you don't stop this harassment immediately, I'm filing a restraining order and pressing charges for cyberstalking and terroristic threats. My boy is 15 years old and he's scared to leave the house because of what your husband said he'd do to him. Asterisk. Attached were screenshots of posts allegedly from Jake's fake accounts. Messages that made my skin crawl. Little punks like you need to learn respect. I know how to track people down. You think mocking a veteran is funny? I'll show you what's funny. Your parents failed you, but I can finish the job they started. Oh my god, I breathed, showing Jake the email. They're not just impersonating you, they're making you sound like a violent predator. Jake read the messages with growing horror. These aren't just fake accounts, Mia. Someone is systematically destroying my life. They know exactly what buttons to push, exactly how to make this look like PTSD-driven revenge fantasies. My phone rang again, Detective Williams. Mrs. Chen, I need you to know that we've just received a second complaint. The mother of one of the teenagers has filed a formal report claiming your husband has been surveilling their home. She has ring camera footage of a man matching your husband's description driving slowly past their house multiple times. That's impossible. Jake's been here or at his friend's place. Ma'am, we have video evidence. A silver Honda Civic with plates that trace back to your address. The driver appears to be using a walking aid consistent with your husband's disability. I looked at Jake in panic. We did own a silver Civic, and Jake did drive it regularly. But he'd been at Davis's house for days, and before that, barely leaving our home because of the media attention. Detective, someone is impersonating my husband. They've created fake social media accounts, and now apparently they're. Mrs. Chen, you need to come in. Both of you. Now. This has escalated beyond online harassment into potential stalking and intimidation of minors. After I hung up, Jake and I stared at each other in stunned silence. Someone wasn't just destroying our reputation, they were actively framing us for crimes we didn't commit. Jake, who would do this? Who has access to this much information about you, about us? I don't know. His voice was hollow. But whoever it is, they're not just some random internet troll. This is coordinated, professional. Someone with resources and inside knowledge. Outside, another car was slowing down in front of our house. But this time, it wasn't a curious neighbor or news crew. It was a police cruiser. And they were turning into our driveway. The police officers who knocked on our door weren't the detectives I'd been expecting. These were patrol officers, young and serious, with a kind of body language that suggested this wasn't a friendly visit. Mrs. Chen? Mr. Chen? The taller one consulted his notepad. I'm Officer Rodriguez, this is Officer Kim. We need you both to come with us for questioning regarding ongoing threats against minors. Can we drive ourselves? Jake asked, already reaching for his keys. I'm afraid not, sir. There's been a development since Detective Williams spoke with you this morning. My stomach dropped. What kind of development? Officer Kim stepped forward, her expression grave. One of the teenagers involved in the original incident received a package at his home this morning. It contained photos of him leaving school, walking to his car, entering his house. Someone has been following and photographing this minor. That wasn't us. I said immediately. We don't even know who those boys are. The package was addressed from J. Chen, Purple Heart veteran with your home address as the return address, Rodriguez continued. Inside was a note saying, I know where you live, I know your schedule, show some respect next time. Jake's cane clattered to the floor as he gripped the doorframe for support. This is insane. Someone is systematically framing us. The fake social media accounts, now this. Sir, we understand this is complicated, but we need to sort this out at the station. Officer Kim's tone was professional but firm. The boy's family is terrified. His mother found him barricaded in his bedroom this morning, afraid to go to school. As we were escorted to the patrol car, I noticed Mrs. Patterson filming from her front yard again. 2 other neighbors had come out to watch the show. By tonight, there would be new videos circulating, military wife and veteran arrested for stalking children. The drive to the police station felt surreal. Jake sat rigid beside me in the back seat, staring out the window as our neighborhood disappeared behind us. This morning we'd been viral internet celebrities with a ruined reputation. Now we were suspects in a criminal investigation involving the harassment of minors. Jake, I whispered, what if whoever's doing this planted evidence in our house? What if they have access to our mail, our computers? He turned to look at me, and for the first time in days, I saw something other than anger or disappointment in his eyes. Fear. Real, genuine fear. The timing, he said quietly. This all started escalating right after the news coverage. What if someone saw the videos and decided to experiment? See how far they could push this? The thought made my blood run cold. We become unwilling participants in someone else's twisted game. Our viral moment transformed into the perfect cover for a harassment campaign that was growing more sophisticated by the day. At the station, we were separated immediately. Through the glass window of the interview room, I could see Jake talking to Detective Williams, his hands moving expressively as he tried to explain something. His face was pale, stressed in a way that reminded me of his worst days recovering from his injuries. Mrs. Chen? A woman in a gray suit entered my room, carrying a thick file folder. I'm Detective Santos. We need to discuss your husband's recent online activity and your knowledge of his whereabouts over the past week. She opened the folder, revealing printed screenshots that made my heart sink. More fake posts, more threatening messages, all attributed to accounts using Jake's name and photo. But these were different from what I'd seen before, more detailed, more personal. Your husband posted the home addresses of all 4 teenagers involved in the mall incident, Detective Santos said, sliding the papers toward me. Along with their school schedules, their parents' workplaces, and detailed descriptions of their daily routines. I stared at the evidence in horror. Someone hadn't just been impersonating Jake, they'd been conducting surveillance on 4 children and documenting everything in his name. Detective, I said, my voice shaking, my husband would never do this. Someone is framing us. That's what everyone says, Mrs. Chen. But the evidence suggests otherwise. The evidence Detective Santos spread across the table made my vision blur. Photo after photo of the 4 boys, walking to school, getting into cars, sitting in what looked like their own bedrooms. Someone had been watching these children for days, documenting their every move with the precision of a professional stalker. This one was posted to your husband's alleged Facebook account yesterday, Santos said, pointing to a photo of the tall boy, the ringleader with the expensive haircut, sitting at what appeared to be his kitchen table. The caption reads, Target acquired. Time to teach some manners. Detective, please listen to me, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Someone has been systematically destroying our lives since this went viral. They created fake accounts, they've been impersonating my husband, and now this. We're being framed. Santos leaned back in her chair, studying me with a kind of cool assessment that made me feel like a specimen under a microscope. Mrs. Chen, your husband has extensive military training in reconnaissance and surveillance. He has documented anger management issues related to his PTSD. And you've already demonstrated a willingness to publicly confront these same minors. Anger management issues? What are you talking about? She flipped through her file and pulled out another set of papers. Your husband's VA records indicate ongoing treatment for adjustment difficulties and episodes of displaced aggression. There's a note here from his therapist about concerning statements regarding civilian disrespect for military sacrifice. My mouth went dry. Those were private medical records, protected by federal law. How did you get those? You can't just. We received them from someone concerned about public safety. Someone with legitimate access to VA databases. Santos's expression didn't change. Mrs. Chen, this informant reached out to us because they were worried your husband might escalate from online threats to physical confrontation. The room felt like it was spinning. Someone inside the VA system was feeding information to the police, painting Jake as a dangerous veteran on the edge of violence. The same medical records that documented his brave struggle with recovery were being twisted into evidence of instability. There's something else, Santos continued, pulling out her phone. We received this video 20 minutes ago. She turned the screen toward me, and my blood turned to ice. It was security footage from what looked like a gas station, showing a man who looked remarkably like Jake, same build, same slight limp, using a similar cane, purchasing a prepaid phone and paying cash. The timestamp showed yesterday afternoon. Your husband bought an untraceable phone at a Shell station 6 blocks from the first victim's school, Santos said. The same day these surveillance photos started appearing online. That's not Jake, I said, leaning forward to study the grainy footage. Look at how he's walking, the limp is all wrong. Jake's injury affects his right leg, but this person is favoring their left side. Santos paused the video and looked more closely. For a moment, hope flickered in my chest. But then she shook her head. Gait patterns can change based on fatigue, stress, or compensation for pain. This is consistent with your husband's medical profile. Before I could respond, there was a sharp knock on the door. Another officer entered and whispered something to Santos that made her expression harden. Mrs. Chen, we just received a 911 call. Someone matching your husband's description was spotted in the parking lot of Jefferson High School, where 3 of the 4 boys attend classes. A parent reported seeing a man with a cane taking photographs of students during lunch period. My heart stopped. Where's my husband right now? Is he still here? Santos was already standing, her radio crackling with urgent chatter. That's what we're trying to determine. The interview room where we left him is empty. Empty? What do you mean empty? Mrs. Chen, your husband is gone. And if he's not at that school like witnesses are claiming, then we have a very serious problem. Because that means someone is impersonating him in real time, potentially putting children in immediate danger. Through the glass window, I could see officers moving with sudden urgency, radios buzzing with chatter I couldn't quite make out. Someone had escalated this nightmare from online harassment to what looked like active threats against minors. And Jake was missing. The next 2 hours were a blur of frantic phone calls and growing panic. I sat in that sterile interview room, watching through the window as officers coordinated what was clearly becoming a manhunt. Detective Santos had left me with Officer Kim, who kept checking her radio every few minutes with increasingly concerned expressions. "Mrs. Chen, we need you to try calling your husband again," Kim said, sliding my phone across the table. I dialed Jake's number for the 10th time, listening to it go straight to voicemail. "Jake, please, wherever you are, call me back. The police think you're at the school, but I know that's not you. Someone is impersonating you and—" "Ma'am, that's enough," Kim interrupted. "We can't have you potentially warning him if—" "If what? If my disabled husband is somehow conducting surveillance on a school while simultaneously sitting in your interview room?" My voice was getting louder, months of suppressed frustration finally boiling over. "This is insane." Kim's radio crackled, Unit 47 to base. No sign of the suspect at Jefferson High. "But we found something in the parking lot." My stomach dropped. "What did they find?" Kim held up a hand, listening intently to the radio chatter. "Unit 47, say again?" "We found a cane, similar to the one described by witnesses. It was left on the hood of a blue Honda in the student lot. No sign of the individual." "A blue Honda," I said immediately. "Jake drives a silver Civic." "See? This proves it's not him." But Kim was already speaking into her radio. "Run the plates on that Honda. And get the security footage from the school cameras." Before she could respond to me, Detective Santos burst through the door, her face grim. "Mrs. Chen, we have a problem. Your husband never checked out at the front desk. Security footage shows him leaving through a back exit 30 minutes ago." "That's impossible. You said he was in an interview room." "He told Detective Williams he needed to use the restroom. The cameras show him walking down the hallway, but then the feed cuts out for exactly 12 minutes. When it resumes, he's gone." My mind reeled. "Cuts out? Like someone tampered with it?" Santos nodded slowly. "Either your husband has skills we didn't know about, or someone else is controlling this situation from the inside." Before I could process that terrifying implication, Santos's phone rang. She answered it with a sharp Santos, then listened with growing alarm. "We'll be right there," she said, hanging up. "Mrs. Chen, you're coming with us. There's been another development." The drive took us across town to a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Upscale houses with manicured lawns, the kind of place where teenage boys might drive expensive cars and get $100 haircuts. We pulled up behind 3 police cruisers parked in front of a large colonial with perfect landscaping. "This is the home of Marcus Webb," Santos explained as we walked up the driveway. "The boy who seemed to be the ringleader at the mall." The front door was answered by a woman in her 40s, her face pale with stress. "Detective Santos? Thank God you're here. Marcus is barricaded in his room. He won't come out." "Mrs. Webb, this is Mia Chen. We need to understand exactly what happened." Mrs. Webb looked at me with a mixture of fear and anger. "What happened is that your husband left another package. This time with a key." She led us to the front porch, where a small cardboard box sat next to their welcome mat. Inside was a single house key and a note written in block letters. "I can get inside whenever I want. Your locks won't stop a soldier." "The key opens our front door," Mrs. Webb continued, her voice shaking. "Someone made a copy of our house key and wants us to know they can get to Marcus whenever they choose." Santos bagged the evidence while I stared at the note in horror. The handwriting didn't look like Jake's, but whoever was doing this had escalated from surveillance to breaking and entering, from threats to actual access. "Mrs. Webb," I said desperately, "my husband didn't do this. Someone is framing him, using his identity to—" "I don't care about your theories," she snapped. "I care about protecting my son. Marcus made a stupid mistake at the mall, but he doesn't deserve to be terrorized by some unstable veteran with a grudge." As she spoke, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. In the background, barely visible through their living room window, I could see the blue Honda that had been mentioned at the school. It was parked across the street, and someone was sitting in the driver's seat. Watching us. "Detective Santos." I grabbed her arm and pointed across the street. "The blue Honda, someone's in it right now." Santos spun around, her hand moving instinctively to her weapon. The figure in the car seemed to realize they'd been spotted because the engine started immediately. "All units, suspect vehicle fleeing eastbound on Maple Street." Santos barked into her radio as the Honda peeled away from the curb. But I was already running. Months of helplessness, of watching our lives get destroyed while Jake got blamed for everything, fueled my legs as I sprinted after the car. Behind me, I could hear Santos shouting for me to stop, but I didn't care about protocol anymore. The Honda had to slow for a speed bump, and I got close enough to see the driver clearly through the rear window. It wasn't Jake, it was a woman with short dark hair, wearing what looked like military fatigues. She caught sight of me in her mirror and floored it, but not before I managed to snap a photo with my phone. 3 police cruisers converged on the Honda 2 blocks later, boxing it in at a red light. I arrived just as they were pulling the driver from the car, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw her face. It was Rachel Morrison, Jake's former physical therapist from the VA hospital. "Rachel?" I gasped, pushing through the circle of officers. "What the hell are you doing?" She looked up at me with eyes that burned with something between rage and satisfaction. "You have no idea what you cost me, do you?" she spat. "Your little mall tantrum didn't just go viral, it got me fired." Detective Santos cuffed her while I tried to process what I was hearing. "Fired? What are you talking about?" "The videos made the VA look bad. Military wife melting down, disabled veteran can't control his spouse, it reflected poorly on the whole rehabilitation program." Rachel's voice was bitter, venomous. 3 years I worked there. 3 years helping ungrateful soldiers like your husband get back on their feet. And I lost everything because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. So you decided to destroy our lives? I decided to show everyone what military families are really like when the cameras stop rolling. Unstable, violent, entitled. She laughed, a sound with no humor in it. It was almost too easy. Jake's medical records, his personal information, even getting access to your home to make that key, you people trust anyone in a VA uniform. Santos was reading Rachel her rights, but I had to know more. The fake social media accounts? The surveillance photos? Child's play. I had months of Jake's therapy sessions, knew exactly how to make him sound unhinged. And those boys? She shrugged. They deserved to be scared after what they did. I just made sure your husband got the blame. As they loaded Rachel into the police car, Santos turned to me. Mrs. Chen, we owe you and your husband a significant apology. We should have investigated the impersonation angle more thoroughly. Where is Jake now? Safe. He's been at his unit's base since he left the station, went straight to his commanding officer to report what was happening. We confirmed his alibi 10 minutes ago. That evening, Jake and I sat on our couch together for the first time in a week. The news was running a very different story now. DA employee arrested for framing veteran and wife with Rachel's mugshot displayed prominently. I'm sorry, I said quietly. For all of it. For starting this mess at the mall, for not thinking about what you wanted. I'm sorry too, Jake interrupted. For letting it get so bad that you felt like you had to fight my battles for me. For making you feel like I wasn't worth defending. My phone buzzed with a notification. The TikTok account that had been mocking us had posted a new video, an apology, explaining that they'd been part of a coordinated harassment campaign by a disturbed individual. Think this will actually end it? Jake asked, watching me scroll through dozens of similar retractions and apologies flooding my feeds. Maybe. Or maybe people will just find something new to be outraged about. I set my phone aside and took his hand. But I learned something important through all this. What's that? Those boys at the mall? They were just stupid kids being cruel for 30 seconds. But I turned that into something that nearly destroyed us. I squeezed his fingers. Sometimes the people trying to protect you can do more damage than the ones trying to hurt you. Jake smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in days. Good thing I married someone who learns from her mistakes. Outside, a car slowed in front of our house, but this time it was just a neighbor coming home from work. No reporters, no gawkers, no one documenting our private moments for public consumption. Just us, finally learning to defend each other in ways that actually helped instead of hurt. The quiet felt like victory.